Hold on to your butts. Um,
All right, this is a video I'm making for posterity. This is the night before the 2020 election, and just to give you people of the future the idea of what was going on right before the election. And because these things get lost very easily, I've tried looking up the history of these elections and the predictions that were done before, and it's really up to your memory. It's very difficult to find these articles once the election is over because most of them are wrong. I remember in 2008, the predictions were much more dire for John McCain. Now, he lost big, but the polls were even worse. And the polls were bad in 2004 when Bush beat Kerry. They were congratulating Kerry on the election day because the polls were so off. And, you know, then we get to 2008, they were off. And then 2012, they were actually good. And it took everybody by surprise. They even congratulated the pollsters, saying the pollsters were the real winners of the 2012 election when Obama won and held on, even though he lost some electoral votes. And then in 2016, famously, the polls were overwhelmingly for Hillary Clinton, and turned out that Trump was the winner. And so everybody scrambled to try to save face and hope that people forget. And now we're in 2020, where the polls again are saying that Trump is going to lose worse than the last time. So a lot of people are trying to figure this out and see what exactly is going on. So when I do a Google search and I go to election predictions, I get the first one is 4 GOP campaign chiefs make their final election. I look through this and basically they're split, one thinks that Biden's going to absolutely destroy Trump, and then one thinks that Biden will barely win, and then the other two think that Trump are going to barely win. And then the next one that I saw down is the New York Post, or the Washington Post, excuse me, and they believe that it's going to be a Biden blowout, 350 to 188. And then I got this 12 on your side, just a local, but Charlottesville UVA is saying that 321 for Biden, 217 for Trump. And then we've got the famous 538. They basically got two scenarios where Trump can win and Biden is going to dominate this election and just completely take over. You go to 270, they're saying that Biden's 351. But then I did a search for 2020 campaign rally, and what might get forgotten in all this is the campaign rallies that Trump has. And he had big crowds in 2016. But this is different. This is during a COVID outbreak that people are scared to go outside and be around people, and Trump is getting crowds bigger than ever. There's some crowds in these swing states where it's over 50,000 people, and that's like rock concert level. So when the first election, people were saying, well, you should have counted the yard signs to see who was going to win because there were so many Trump yard signs, and he won. And now the polls are saying the same thing that they did in 2016. But instead of yard signs, now we're looking at the rallies, and it's just Biden rallies are sparse. In fact, there's sometimes the Trump people outnumber the Biden people. In fact, there was one case where they went down to Texas, and the Trump supporters got in their trucks and waved their flags and surrounded the bus and escorted it all throughout Texas. And they got into an incident. From what I saw in the video, was that there was a car following, probably some staffers that couldn't fit on the bus or just too low to be on the bus. And so they were trying to stay on the bus's tail, and the bus was straddling the lines. So the car was straddling the lines. So then the car gets tired of being, breaking the law like the bus. So they go into the middle lane, and one of the Trump supporters go into the right lane, and the car starts leaning into the right lane again, trying to get behind the bus. And they rub together. It rubs the front tire of the truck. The truck, if your tire is going slower in the front right, you're going to suddenly swerve. I'm sorry, the front left tire. If the front left tire suddenly goes slower, you're going to swerve left, and that's what happened. And so they bumped, and the FBI is looking into it, and then you can, from a certain point of view, you can call it intimidation or something like that. I don't think that was the intent. It definitely wasn't benevolent. They weren't there to encourage the Biden people, but I don't think they were there to hurt anybody or to intimidate them. They were just there to mock them and so forth. That's just my interpretation. So I'm sure many people will look at it very differently. But this is the stuff that's going on right now. There's just a tremendous amount of parades of Trump supporters going around. You don't see it with the Biden supporters. And the main concern is, well, if this is, how can they predict? How are these polls coming up with such large Biden wins? I mean, it's not like they're saying, well, Biden's going to squeak it out. Yeah, Trump's got all this support, enthusiasm, and everything, but Biden's got a lot of people in these cities, and the Democrat strongholds are going to come out and counter, and he's going to come out on top. No, they're saying it's going to be a blowout. They're saying 8 million vote win. I mean, he's going to absolutely destroy Donald Trump. Maybe they're right. Some people are concerned because. And I did a search on voter fraud because there is a concern that there's going to be a lot of cheating going on. You're going to see lawsuits, and the election just may never really end, where we got lawsuit after lawsuit of accusations and finger pointing. And I can't think of anything that's going to destroy the country faster than if we can't rely on our electoral process and voting. That's what holds this country together. And I think our enemies are figuring this out if they haven't already done so. And so they're going to, this may sound conspiratorial, but they're going to try to get people to not believe in our election system. And the best way to do that is to create fraud. And so I did a search on fraud, and let's see, where was it? I've got so many things here. That's not it. Yeah, this is another election map where they've got Biden safely winning, Florida, Virginia, all these states that Trump picked off last time. He's going to take Arizona. So there is a tremendous amount of articles that are saying not only is it going to be a Biden win, but it's going to be a blowout. And so let's see. So I clicked on the voter fraud map, and there's been a lot of fraud. They're usually very small instances of voter fraud, and this is what you're seeing here is over the course of like 20 years. So they're just not getting caught, and they're mostly smaller. And people are saying, well, these things don't really show up on the radar because it's usually very small. People don't care about it. It's not enough to sway an election. But recently, we've had a case here with in New Jersey about mail-in voter fraud charges, and these stuck. In fact, the judge said, "You got to do the election over. This is ridiculous." And New York Times did a really good job of trying to cover it up. They were saying experts are saying it's not really this, but they did a kind of bait and switch. As I read through the article, they said that more than 3,000 were thrown out, but it wasn't because people just voted that they weren't supposed to be there. But in fact, they talk about 1,000 votes were disqualified because a section of the ballot to list the name of the person sending them in had been left blank. So they're saying it's a technicality, but that's a pretty big technicality. People aren't filling them out and saying what their name is. Then, I mean, when I go in to vote, I got to sign my name, I got to show ID. They got to verify that, it's me, and then I get my ballot, and they cross off the list, and no one can do it again. If somebody else comes in and tries to vote in my name, that's a problem. 1,200 votes were disqualified because voters' signatures did not match those on file. That's fraud. That's not a technicality. Somebody's trying to vote in somebody else's name. That is the real fear of what voter fraud is going to be. So, yeah, New York Times didn't get it quite right here, and they're trying to sugarcoat it. But this is definitely a problem. This is the Achilles heel of the United States, that if we're going to go down, it's going to go down because of this. It's not going to go down because another country is going to invade us. It's not going to go down because of COVID or unrest from Antifa or anything like that. We can hold up to that, but this is the real fear. Whether this one is really as bad as I think or not, or that it's going to be bad in this presidential election, is irrelevant. It will always be a weakness that we have to be mindful of and be very sensitive to when we're trying to figure out what we're going to do as a country. Okay. Let's see. What else did I look up? Oh, I wanted to talk about this guy right here. He is predicting Trump has a 91% chance. And then there was another guy and they both say that they've been right. Now, this guy that says Trump's going to win, he's actually been right. This guy hasn't always been right. When they show his record, I think it's at the top. No, guess not. They show a graphic that he has predicted everything right, but he picked Gore in 2000. They said, well, that he picks the popular vote. But then it showed that he picked Trump. So, you can't have it both ways. It's either he was right on Trump or he was right on Gore, not on both when it comes to the popular vote. So I didn't understand that. But anyway, he's got all these keys that he says, if you have 6 keys, you lose. And Trump's got 7 of them. And he talks about the mandate key. And he might be right about that the people may not agree with what Trump is standing for right now. Short-term economic key, I would also agree with there, because the short-term economy is really hurting right now. We're still at 7%. Long-term economic key, I have to disagree, because we just had the fastest growth. It was something like 33.1% GDP growth. The country is coming back in gangbusters. I mean, we're really making superior progress as we get further and further from the major lockdowns that we had in March. Social unrest, definitely agree with that. There's a lot of social unrest. There's a lot of Antifa, Black Lives Matter activity going around, riots, looting in major cities. So that is definitely a key there. Scandal, he's talking about the impeachment trial, but it just feels like that's ancient history. I mean, if you go on the person on the street, they'll say, hey, what do you think about impeachment? They're like, what are you talking about? I mean, it just feels so far away that I can't agree with that. In fact, there's a big scandal with Biden and his son Hunter going around right now. And so if anything, you give the scandal side to Biden. Foreign military success, again, this is a tricky one, because I definitely disagree. Trump has had terrific successes in getting several peace deals in the Middle East, things that people thought were impossible. In fact, Sudan, I believe it's Sudan, actually ended a war with Israel. So there's been some tremendous foreign successes under this president. And then incumbent charisma, again, that's who you talk to. Some people love his abrasiveness. Some people hate it. And those are probably people that are going to vote against him or for him, depending on whether they like his charisma. So that is a questionable one, but I think you can give it to him on that one. So mandate key, short-term key, social unrest, and incumbent, I count 4. So if he says it's 6... and I'm looking at it again. It's not his his formula that I think I disagree with. I think it's his interpretation of the events that I disagree with, and we'll see. I mean, it he could be right, and his conclusion or his interpretation of his own formula could be wrong, and we'll see how he does in this election. So there is where it stands right now. I mean, we're looking, at the media is telling us that it's going to be a Biden pseudo slam. It's going to be a slam dunk for Biden. It should be an easy win. We should know by tomorrow night, probably very late. But once they count Florida, they're saying Florida is going to go to Biden. If that's true, it's game over. I don't see how Trump can win without Florida, because that he calls it his home state, and I don't see how he's going to recover from Florida. And that's exactly what we thought in 2016. Ohio, North Carolina, and Florida were the big states that we were looking at in 2016. And there were some people that thought that he was going to lose Georgia, Texas, some of these other states going on through here, and turned out to be almost the opposite. Not only did he hang on to these states over here, North Carolina, Georgia, Florida, Arizona, but he won Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania, and really just blew the doors off of everybody's expectations. So we don't know exactly what's happening. Like I said, the media is telling us that Trump is going to lose handily. We're going to know early. And, I think once we see what happens with Florida, I remember in 2016, everybody started looking at Virginia. And Virginia was teetering towards Trump, and they knew right there, there's a problem here. So I'm going to look first at Virginia, see how that race goes. If it goes handily for Biden, then North Carolina is in play. If Trump struggles in Ohio, I don't see him winning in Pennsylvania, Michigan, or Wisconsin. If he struggles, or if he struggles in Georgia, which usually Georgia was called late. Florida came in much earlier. But if he loses Florida, then game over for Trump. You can start calling up Biden, Mr. President, right then and there. So that's what we're looking at. Once we see what happens with Florida, get a hint on Virginia, see what happens with North Carolina, then we'll have a much better sense of how this goes. And if he crushes, if Virginia falls to Trump, then you can just say, okay, it's another 4 years. There's no way Biden can come back from that. So if Biden hangs on to Virginia, Trump hangs on to North Carolina, Georgia, and Florida, it's looking good there, and Ohio, then we're in for a long night. And we're going to probably have to wait several weeks for Pennsylvania to count their votes and have recounts and lawsuits and all sorts of nonsense, and it's just going to be a huge mess if that goes on. So I think a lot of people are just hoping for a blowout one way or another, just so we don't have a 2020 experience, because everything in 2020 just seems to have gone wrong and been more difficult than it really has to be. And if this election follows suit, that's exactly what's going to happen. Trump's going to take North Carolina, Georgia, Florida, Biden and Ohio, and Biden's going to take Virginia, all these states out west except for Arizona. Arizona will be contested, Pennsylvania will be contested, Michigan will be contested, Wisconsin will be contested, and New Hampshire will be contested. We won't know who's the president for quite some time. Go to the Supreme Court, and that's a whole nother ball of wax there, because Trump has appointed 3 of the 9 justices personally. Will those 3 justices recuse themselves? What's going to happen with the Supreme Court? If the Supreme Court finds in favor of Trump in some way, then people are going to say it's rigged. And there's a lot of pitfalls in this election. And if you're writing a drama, then there's going to be a lot of material for you to use about presidential elections in the United States. So, it'll be interesting to watch. I live in an area that's far away from these cities, so I'm not worried about my or my family's safety, but I do have family and friends that live in a big city and in other areas of the country that are close to cities, and I worry about them. I worry that these riots are going to get closer and closer to where they live. Um, their quality of life is going to go down as a result of this, and it really was unnecessary. All of this that's going on right now, it's just partisan politics at its worst. And I just hope something happens in this election that will calm it down. Will I be happy if the other guy wins? Then no, I'm not. I'm not going to be happy about it. But if it was a free and fair election, there's no voter fraud or no voter fraud that could have made a difference in this election. Of course, I can accept the outcome of the election, and I don't have any problem with it. See what the other side does for the next 4 years, and see if I was right or wrong. Okay, thanks for watching, and thanks for listening to my thoughts. Really, I just put it up here to put it in front of, and just establish it before the election day, because if my thoughts come out after the election day, that I'm skeptical about these predictions after the fact, and who's going to believe you? Who cares? So I just wanted to put it out there and see what happens, and then bring up a reaction as this election progresses. Just a regular person looking at this election. Thanks for listening.